Hello friends, welcome back to my Python series. This is day 4 where we continue our journey into Python programming, and today we will go through the topic called inheritance. In our day 3 we saw how encapsulation and abstraction, these two popular features of OOPS, got executed, and today we will cover the topic called inheritance. Now, when we refer to the inheritance, there are different type of inheritance that Python provides. Around 5 inheritance are there: single, hierarchical, multiple, multi-level, and hybrid. The one which I am referring today is hierarchical. If you see the description, it says that there is one parent class. Let's consider this diagram. This is my base class, this is my parent class, and there is multiple children. So here is one children, here is one child, and here is another child. So together we have got two children. So that's how the hierarchical representation goes. While single inheritance is saying that there's one parent and there's one child. So that means hierarchical is a composition of single inheritance as well, because you have got one parent, and if you see over here, you can say that there's one child or there's another child. So together, when you have got multiple child together, you call it as a multiple children, and that's how hierarchical inheritance comes in picture, right? So in this particular program I have gone for a hierarchical implementation whereby single inheritance is also considered. So as you can see in the diagram, I have a class called person. So this is my base class, and this class has its own properties, name and age, along with a method called display. So that's what the class person constitute of. Now let's come to the first derived class. There is a student. It has its own properties, student underscore count and course. Plus, if you see, it has got the same function name or a method name that of the class display. And so this is my first derived class. The second derived class is the teacher class. It has its own properties: teacher underscore counter, subject and salary. So these are the properties of the teacher class. Along with that, the teacher class also has got a method called display. So if you look at this diagram, definitely one thing you would come across, and that is both of these classes has got one common thing, that is they have a method by the same name. Well, I did this intentionally because this talks about something called method overriding, which falls under the topic called polymorphism. So that means, according to polymorphism, you can have the same method name around different classes, but of course the body of this method will vary depending upon which class you're going to make use of. Okay, so that's how the diagram is, what it constitutes of, and let's move on to the program and see how these classes are put into action. So here it comes. So as I was saying, that there is a class called person, which is a base class. There is a class called student, which is the first derived class, and look over here, within bracket, within parenthesis, I have written the name of the base class. So that's how inheritance is provided in Python. Please take it very minutely, because the concept of inheritance is also there very much in Django. So this concept will be carried forward in Django. So the way we are representing over here, a very similar representation would be there even in Django as well. So I have got another derived class called teacher, and here is the inheritance taking place. Within parentheses, I'm putting the name of the derived class. So it might look like a function, but be very careful, because usually class name starts with uppercase. That's a convention, and same thing we follow even in Java as well. But yes, in Java we use a keyword called extend while doing the inheritance. Over here we are making use of parentheses. So this is how the multiple classes are inheriting a single base class, as I put forward in the diagram as well. Multiple classes are inheriting one base class, and that's what called hierarchical inheritance. So please keep this diagram in your mind, that hierarchical inheritance means you have got multiple children involved, and it is inheriting one base class. Okay. Apart from all these three classes, I also have got one more class called school manager, which is working like a controller, which will control both of these classes. So in a particular OOPS based program, you can have a scenario where you have got different classes, but there can be one class which is responsible for controlling the entire flow of control, and you consider that kind of class to be a controller. So here we have got a controller. Just a side note, in Django we can write both function based programming, along with that the class based programming. So when you are writing class based programming, this kind of scenario can happen where you have got one controller class which is trying to control other classes as well, and each of these classes has got its own functionalities. So this is one important point. When you talk about the classes, each class should have its own functionalities. Okay, and there has to be one class which can relate to these functionalities together, so that the flow of control is getting distributed properly. Now here we have the main method, and here we are giving a call to the main. So let's get executed. So let me first run the program and see how the flow is taking place. So file name is inheritance.py. I hit the enter, and that brings us to a very neat and clean menu. So how is it flowing? The control comes to the main function. Let me explain the main, and here we see, wow, here we see the instance we are creating of this particular class called school manager. A similar thing we did even in day 3 also. We create the instance. So keep it in mind, this is how we create the instance. So when you're creating the instance, the control will definitely refer to the class, and we also know very well that creating instance means to give a call to the init method. So if I click on this, the control will directly come to the class school manager, and the very first thing that will get fired is the init method. Should I call it as a method? The appropriate term would be to call it as a constructor. So constructor is responsible for creating the instance of the class. So what is there inside this constructor? Well, I have created a list for students, I have created a list for teacher. So make sure, please watch my day 1, day 2, these series, because they are where you will come across the concept of list. And in my last program also I have mentioned how valuable the concept of list is in order to store data, both in Python as well as in Django. So these lists, independent lists, are getting created, and along with that we have got an infinite while loop, and as you can see the options right over here. So I would start with the very first option. As I select 1, and the moment I will hit enter, the 1 will get stored right over here in the choice, and then we go for decision making statement where the choice is 1. Well, I'm taking choice as string. In other words, I have to write int function as a typecasting, which I didn't do, so I'm just considering it as a string type. The reason quotations are there. Okay, feel free to change it to integer type as well. So over here we'll put the int function as a typecasting. So one would give a call to something called school.add, and we saw the school as an instance and of this particular class called school manager. So what will happen? Well, if I give a call to this particular function, it will bring me right over here into the add student, and since this is an instance, so I have to pass the first parameter as self, which we discussed in day 3 in the last day. So let me expand this and let's see what it is. So as I hit the enter, you will come across the following options, and here it goes. It is asking to enter the student name, and that will get stored inside the variable called name. So let's consider it's Peter Parker, and as I hit the enter, it will ask enter the student age. Yeah, so let's go with the value like 29, and it would ask me enter the course name. So let me write it like database, a very important course, and I hit the enter. Now what would happen? Look at line number 51 very minutely. You know, according to my last video, I stated that this would give a call to, well, this is again a class, right? This is a student class. So we already started working with the implementation of object. So here we are creating an object of the student class, but simultaneously we are passing 3 parameters to the student class. So when we are giving a call right over here, the control will directly jump over here, and it would also give a call to the constructor, right? Because you're creating an instance. So the moment you're creating an instance, always the constructor would come in picture. Make sure. Okay, these are very important statement. Please follow this statement very minutely. So when I give a call to this line, control will directly come to the class student and it would come within this particular constructor. Now look over here, I'm passing 3 parameters. Well, by now you already know that whenever you're dealing with constructor or methods present inside a class, the first parameter should always be self. So that is something what you need to do every time. So here I also have got self. Now I am passing 3 different parameters: name, which will assign to name, age to age, and course to course. So that's the reason these 3 parameters are written over here. An exact mapping you have to do in context of the constructor, right? Now what will happen after this? Well, already this class is making use of inheritance and we are working on hierarchical inheritance. So over here, if you look, a very important line is there. Make yourself accustomed with this particular line, which you will be using very frequently. Super. It's a very nice term, super. What is super? Well, super is used in the derived class, because right now we're in a student, which is a derived class, and it is used for the base class constructor. We already saw in the diagram that super is used in the derived class to give a call to the base class constructor, because over here I have clearly mentioned underscore underscore init. So underscore underscore init means you're giving a call to the constructor. Like, see, if I collapse this class and if I click over here by pressing the control button from the keyboard and directly jump over here, so that means super is used in the derived class because student is a derived class, person is a base class. Super is used in the derived class to give a call to the base class constructor. That is one definition. Another definition is super is used in the derived class to give a call to the base class method as well. See, I have a method called display underscore info, and with the same name there is another method over here. So with when the control will come over here, it will jump right over here. So keep it in mind, the super is such a method that would be responsible for giving a call to the base class constructor or base class method, but the super invocation has to be done from the derived class. So student can use super, teacher can use super to give a call to the base class constructor or base class method. Okay, that is something very important, so keep it in mind, huh? Now, so already you have passed this data to the person, and inside the person we have got the respective parameter again. So initially it took 3 parameters: name, age, and course, and over here I have given the name to the name and age to the age, and we have assigned these things to, initially these are parameters, and this thing has been assigned to the property of the class person, right? So if you take a minute note over here, this class person has got only 2 properties, whereas if you look over here, the student class has its own property as well. So as I presented in the diagram as well, it is always possible that the class should have its own property along with what it is getting inherited, because inheritance is what we are dealing with. So here I have its own property called student underscore counter. Now please keep it very minute watch. In the command line also I mentioned that this property I'm not writing inside the init constructor. I repeat, this property I'm not writing inside the init constructor. What does this imply? Well, if you are writing some property directly inside the class and not inside the constructor, it means that this property can be accessed directly by the class name. Look over here what I've done. This is not accessed through the help of self keyword like what I'm doing over here. This I'm not what I'm doing over here, because over here I have made use of the class variable, and in context of class variable you can access it directly by the class name. So this is something what you need to keep in mind. The properties are defined within the constructor, and to make use of those properties we'll be using the self keyword. But when it comes to the class level variables, you just need to make use of the direct class with the class name followed by the dot operator. We will call the name of the class variable. That's how it is usually works. Okay, So once we have created, given a value passed on, so this is where with the help of super, I'm passing the data from the derived class to the base class. I can say this is a very important point. Please keep a note of this line, that when the communication between the derived class to the base class goes on, at that point of time super will be one of the way by which you can pass the data. So derived class initially accepted the data, and with the help of super invocation to the constructor, the derived class is passing data to the base class, like that what you can see over here. Alright, now the derived class has also got its own class variable, and that's what I'm incrementing. Initially it was 0, I'm making it as 1. So far so good. And now what I'm doing, well, after this I am just look over here what I did. As I said, that look inside this class student, I have its own property as well, that is called course. So the third parameter, course, is what I'm assigning to the course within itself. So clearly one thing got very neat and clearly it got stated, that certain properties will be passed on to the base class, and certain property it will retain for itself. So that's what I am doing it over here. That is what I'm just keeping it within myself, because this is something that belongs to this particular class called student, and these are something which has been forwarded to the base class called person. So that's how this thing is working, and that's what we will be doing right over here. So once the object get created, now is the time when we have to insert this object inside the list. Last day also I showed you how the list keep track of the dictionary, and over here we are keeping track of the object. So with the help of append function, which is very important as our list is concerned, I am storing the object that we have created just now, which is the object belongs to the class student. So I did not draw that particular segment over here, but I hope you can understand that this particular statement is a clear implication that the student list is going to hold an object that is called student class. I mean this particular class called student. Yes, right. And that student again is connected with the class called person, and that's how the chaining is taking place, right? So that's what we have done in context of the add functionality. So as I hit the enter now, so the moment I will hit the enter, yes, the student one class got added successfully. So this message got printed right from over here, student ID, and the detail has been successfully added. Okay, so once we have done this, this is where the statement comes on. So as you can see over here, that the student object got created successfully, and we got a wonderful print message. Now let's come to the next part of the story. Suppose if I want to display this information which I have created, so what I will do, I will give a call to the display option, and that brings us to the method called display. So it will jump right over here, and over here we are just checking whether there is a student available or not. Just now we created a student, so definitely this if condition is not true, it will come to the else part and it will pick up the data from the list one after the other, and there is a function called display underscore info. So this function will be getting executed. So this display function is present where it is there inside the, so if I click this display function, that will bring to the student, and over here we have got the display. Alright, so student dot display is what as we are doing. So we are picking up one item from the list, because if you see over here, here is my list, and inside the list I have got individual object. So that object is coming over here, and from here we are giving a call to the display underscore info. So control will come right over here, and once it reaches over here, we are giving a call to the parent class display. From there we are printing the name and age. Remember, this name and age was passed to the parent one. So from here we are displaying the name and age coming from the parent, and the course information is coming from itself. So let me go for the option number 3, and I hit enter, and as you can see over here, see the name is coming from the parent class Peter Parker, and the age is coming from the parent class. So this is a statement, that is what we are seeing right over here. And itself what you have got is this line, student ID is what we can see, student ID is this, and what we have got the course. See, notice one thing, I didn't give the student ID, right? So student ID is auto generated, and that is what is happening right over here. So it is generating the student ID by default. I have just taken what I took the input, I just took the input as the student name, age, and course name. So that's how it is working, right? Okay, so let's come to the teacher part now. So I believe this portion is clear. So now if I go and add teacher, I will hit the enter number 2. Once I do that, the if condition is true, we come to the function called add teacher, and that brings us to the school manager class where this method is defined. And look over here, it is going to take following input for the teacher name, suppose John Carter, and I hit the enter. What subject, what is the age of the teacher? The teacher is suppose 49. I hit the enter. What subject the teacher is supposed to take? Suppose database. I hit the enter. And the salary, suppose the salary is like 55,000. Okay, I hit the enter. So once I do this, what will happen? The following input all has been taken, and now we are giving a call to the constructor again. So we are creating an object, that means the constructor will come in picture, and here it is, and this class has got the inheritance, so the control will again come over here, and the simple thing again I'm doing, all the 4 parameters which I have taken as an input will come to the constructor apart from the self, name, age, salary, subject and salary, and I'm passing the first 2 input to my base class. So this base class will again receive the name and age, but this time this is going to be of type teacher. But again, the base class is a generalist class. It will not differentiate whether it's a student or teacher. It will just accept the input and it will just store it accordingly. So here the super is giving a call to the base class constructor, and then we increment the counter. Remember, the counter is again the class base variable, so for that reason we are calling directly the name of the class with that the class variable. So we are not using the self keyword, and again we are incrementing our counter variable, and it has got its own property, subject and salary. As we saw in the diagram, every class has its own property, subject and salary, and that also got initialized. And now what we will do, we will give a call to the display method. Well, before that we have already created the object, and that object will now be assigned to the list. Remember, we have a list, that means each class is going to have, each class will be represented by a list, and that's what we are doing inside the constructor. See, inside the constructor of the school manager we have created the list. So this list is going to hold the object of the teacher class. So that means how important is the list. Every time I'm telling this, because list will always keep track of the object that we are going to create, and that's how the thing is going to work. And now let me hit the enter. So as I do that, the teacher object gets created successfully, and now is the time when we can go and display. So the moment I press the option number 4, and that will bring us to the display function. So that will bring us right over here, and let's see what is there in the display function. Let me collapse this one, and here it comes. Again we are checking whether display student, teacher detail is there or not. Yeah, of course teacher detail is there, and we have got, so with the help of self we are giving a call to the list, and that list is storing individual object, and that object will give a call to the display method. So from here the control will jump to the display, and this is again, I'm not talking about the student, it will be teacher. So this display will come in picture, so it will give a call to the base class display with the help of super. See over here, every time super is coming in picture, because super is the way of communication during inheritance. Remember this, super would be the super responsibility would be to pass the data to the base class via derived class, and super is always responsible to give a call to the base class method. So the person class has got this particular method, and that what getting called over here. So super is giving a call to the base class method, plus whatever leftover property the class itself has got, that also it will display. So teacher ID is there, and subject is there, and salary is there. These are the property of the class itself. So those properties will also define along with the base class properties. So as I go for option number 4, we would see all these properties one by one. This is coming from the base class, name and age, as you can see right over here, and the leftover property, the ID and the subject and the salary, everything is coming from the class itself. Okay, so we saw that how exactly hierarchical inheritance is working, where we have got the base class, you have got multiple derived class, we have a controller who is responsible for creating the constructor is responsible for creating these lists, because inside this list we are going to store the object of the respective classes. So from this particular video, one thing got very clear: the list is not just going to hold only a dictionary or a tuple or a set, but list is also responsible for holding objects of your base class or some other derived class. So list is like very important topic. And finally, we did come to the end of this particular program. But before we wrap up the program, what conclusion do we draw from this? Again, the concept in encapsulation comes in picture, because name, age, these properties are all present inside the class, and we need to make use of method to give a call. Like, without the help of the method, we cannot call these properties, right? These properties are being called by the name of the method, as you can see. So encapsulation is working, and at the same time abstraction is also there. We are hiding all the details, and we are just showing only that part to the end user, as you can see right over here, how neat and clean. The end user is not aware that how this thing is working. It just need to know what input it has to give. Inheritance, we worked on the hierarchical inheritance because we were working on multiple children. Okay, so there are multiple children, that's what we are working on, and there's a base class, one single base class. Polymorphism is there, very much there. With the help of the polymorphism, we achieve method overriding. So always remember, when you are working on object-oriented programming, polymorphism would be there, because you have got the same method that you are using it in the derived class. The base class has the same method that has been overwritten, like we are overriding that particular method. So you are defining the body of the method according to your own requirement, but the prototype of the method remains the same. So, and that's where the method overriding comes in picture. Okay, so all these things put together is what the particular program is all about. I believe you got some idea how the inheritance has to work on, and this was the first inheritance, that is hierarchical. In my upcoming videos, I will be also working with other inheritance like multiple and multi-level plus hybrid, because inheritance is a very important topic in context to Django. Okay, so stay tuned with my channel and do keep watching Python. Until then, have a nice day. Bye bye.